everyone, tomorrow, January 1st, 2026, the NFA tax is officially dead. Is that tomorrow? Do we have 30 days or 31? All right, so not tomorrow, but the next day, okay? So we're going to break that down for you today and explain exactly what that means for you. Give you the full picture of where we are, what things are going on, and exactly how things stand. But before we get into that, the first thing I want to remind you of that you absolutely cannot forget is if you'd like to help support the channel directly, you could do that at OnlyTacticalFans at Shopify.com, where you can purchase cool morale patches, beanies, t-shirts like this that say we love the... oh, sorry, got a little something stuck in my throat. We love the ATF. And we want to show our love to everyone and express how much we love the ATF. And this shirt is exactly what you need to be able to do that very thing. We also have hoodies there. And the fact of the matter is I'm demonetized on YouTube. Likely permanently. So the OnlyTacticalFans at Shopify.com is very important because that's the best way to support me. Alright, so this all comes from the one big beautiful bill breaking out in July of 2025. There was a massive push to basically reform the NFA. That was their headline win right there. So originally they wanted to take silencers, short barrel rifles, what else was there? Short barrel rifles, short barrel shotguns off of the NFA, but it ultimately got wound back a little bit. They just couldn't swallow that pill. It was a little bit too much. Clearly the political scene in America is shifting to more of a pro-gun scene, but they weren't just quite ready to make that move yet. So what they did is they got rid of the tax. So that means no more handing over cash to your government just to protect your hearing. Now I just hit the street, so I should have actually looked this up before the video, but I believe that it's not just for silencers, it's also for short barrel rifles and short barrel shotguns, but I gotta look that up. So don't quote me on that, but for sure it's for silencers. But even though the tax is gone, silencers are still trapped on the NFA, which really sucks because that comes with a whole mess of problems. Like you gotta get your fingerprints, you gotta get your photos taken, and then you gotta wait for the Earth to literally orbit the sun possibly 1 or 2 times to get approval to even register with the feds, and now your silencer is trapped on a registry. Pro-gun groups like Gun Owners Over America, Silencer Shop, are all trying to sue to try to take this off of the NFA because why is it on there? Oddly enough though, President Trump's own DOJ under Pam Bondi is fighting to try to keep the NFA alive. It's just weird to me because it doesn't make sense. Maybe they're trying to kick the can down the road to the Supreme Court and make them take silencers off of the NFA. I'm not really sure what's going there or why they're fighting this. You'd think they just step aside and be like, all right, let the pro-gun groups have a win. You know, we took away the tax in the big, beautiful bill, but obviously the whole intent was to get silencers off of the NFA. So just step aside, Pam Bondi, but that's not what's happening. So let's get into why silencers should be completely free from the NFA registration and treated like any other accessory. Now, if they want to do a background check on it, all right, so I'm going to go buy the silencer and I got to do a 4473, I'm totally okay with that. I'd like to see it where it's like a muzzle brake because, it's really a muzzle device, so why does it even matter? But just doing a 4473 would be okay for me. I just want it off of the NFA. First, let's start with some history and get an idea of what's going on with silencers. Invented by Hiram Maxim in 1902, and up until 1934, you could buy one through mail order, right out of a catalog. Zero regulation, zero tax, just like you could do with a muzzle brake or scope today. They were actually advertised as hearing protection devices, or they call it courtesy devices. Basically, the whole advertisement behind it was so hunters could shoot without, bothering their neighbors. So everything changed in 1934. That's with the NFA. I'm sure you guys are insanely familiar with the NFA because you're watching this channel. And you wouldn't be on this channel if you didn't know about the NFA. It's just the way it is. So anyways, the NFA was pushed in 1934 to address prohibition gang violence. Long story short on that is they were like, hey, you guys can't drink anymore. And they're like, hey, we're Americans, we can do what the hell we want. So they ended up paying people that were called bootleggers to bring them alcohol so they could drink anyways because, you know what, Americans like alcohol. 7 gang members were cut down by allegedly Bugsy's gang. They used shotguns, Tommy guns, pistols. None of these firearms were silenced. Did it matter? Nope, silencers still winding up on the NFA. Did it matter that it was widely reported that police were involved and or orchestrated the whole thing? Nope. Did it matter that this was possibly a potential false flag attack to push government regulation? Nope, not at all. Still, even though none of that had anything to do with silencers, silencers still winding up on the NFA. Basically, the NFA slapped a $200 tax on it. Back then, when they applied that tax, that was valued to about $4,700 of today's money. Plus, you had to get fingerprints, you had to register, you had to get photos taken. In 1934 or 1937, the Supreme Court actually upheld this solely because of the framework that it was Congress using their taxing power to raise money off of the tax. And that's why this movement is so critical. With the tax set at zero now, well, now there's no revenue being generated, so the original justification is gone. The Supreme Court has even ruled in other cases, like, for example, the Affordable Care Act, that Congress set the tax at zero, it can no longer be upheld because it's not a legitimate tax. A tax must be collected and it must be legitimate. Basically, they were like, hey, you can't disguise a regulation as a tax, especially if there's no money being collected. You can't call it a tax unless you're collecting tax money. And now that silencers are no longer being collecting tax money, you see where we're going here? Now that the tax is gone, the NFA is nothing more than a regulation, which is specifically banned in 1986 with the Firearms Owners Protection Act. Suppressors, first and foremost, at the end of the day, are hearing protection devices. They can bring noises down to a safer level. Yes, you still need hearing protection, or you should still wear hearing protection. I mean, this is America, so you're probably not going to, but it can bring it down to a reasonable level. And that will help especially new shooters, because the sound, the explosion, all that can create a flinch in people, and it can damage, like say you're out hunting with your kid. Typically hunters don't wear hearing protection. I mean, you can say, oh, they got all these new devices and this, that. Go to the woods, man. You're never going to see a hunter walking around with hearing protection. They just don't. At least in Wisconsin anyway. So, because you start shooting or hunting at such a young age, especially in Wisconsin, you're talking about a cumulative hearing protection over the years, and next thing you know, you wind up like me. If I would have had a silencer at the time, would I have used it all the time? I don't know, but I definitely would have used it at least some of the time, and hearing damage is cumulative. And let's not forget about common use. Millions of silencers are legally owned in America today. Under the Supreme Court ruling in Bruin, items that are considered common use, which I would definitely consider, millions being in common use, are protected by the Second Amendment. They are not dangerous and they are not unusual. You can't really kill anyone with a silencer. I mean, I guess you could bludgeon somebody to death with it, but you still need the firearm attached to it. So by itself, they also avoid the whole dangerous and unusual argument because there's millions of them. Well, that gets rid of unusual, and they can't actually cause physical harm, not by themselves anyway, so that eliminates the dangerous thing. I really don't see how they intend on enforcing the silencers being on the NFA at this point. I have no idea. And let's be real, regulated suppressors are almost never used in a crime. Honestly, when a criminal goes to commit a crime like that, like say murder, they're not thinking about paperwork, they're not thinking about background checks, they're not thinking about any of that. They're thinking about, okay, so I got a pistol that's this long, now I can make it this long. This one's way easier to carry in my waistband and take it to where I plan on committing the scene of the crime. Not saying they wouldn't ever use a silencer, but the rule is they're not going to. The idea is the general public has a skewed perspective of exactly what a silencer can do. In the movies, they see it as like a poof in the middle of the night, some sort of secret assassin's tool that comes in and makes it possible to commit these murders and get away with it. In reality, it doesn't work that way. You're talking about over 160 decibel firearm and reducing it down to 130 or 140, which still is pretty loud, and still you really should wear hearing protection even with that silencer on at that level. Now there's also exceptions like 22 long rifle and 300 blackout and 338 arc, but generally speaking, no, what you see in a Hollywood movie is not reality. Even if a criminal did use a silencer to try to be quieter, to try to get rid of a crime, the fact of the matter is, in the modern world, you have to be in a place with no cameras, and that's incredibly rare. And those places, they just basically don't exist. They're that rare. Most public spots are recorded everywhere. Look at the Luigi Mangione case. Allegedly, he used and I'm saying allegedly because he hasn't been found guilty yet, we're not trying to jump to conclusions, he used a 3D printed firearm with a 3D printed silencer, obviously circumventing all NFA laws. So he circumvented all the NFA laws. He got this item that's supposed to be so heavily restricted without any paper trail. Then he used it. Did it help him get away with the crime? Absolutely not. Did it help him even escape any better? Absolutely not. The fact of the matter is, today's society, there's wireless cameras everywhere. You would have to be in like a gravel pit out in the middle of nowheres or someplace so far off the grid where there's no cameras to actually make the effects of a silencer mean anything. And at that point, the silencer doesn't matter. So, to be in a spot where it's actually going to do what they're claiming it can do for the reason that it's regulated, you got to be in a spot to where it doesn't matter. That's the end of the argument right there. I mean, explain to me where you can honestly use a silencer that's going to help you get away with a crime. It just doesn't work. Let's talk about what silencers actually do. They cut recoil and they cut muzzle blast, which makes shooters more accurate, especially with newer shooters because of the whole flinch. If you can bring down the sound of a firearm and take away some of the muzzle blast, they're likely not to flinch as much. Hunters can also protect their hearing without bulky earmuffs nobody wears anyway, because America. So, all the positives are there for a silencer. All the reasons are there for a silencer to not be regulated. And let's be real. All the NFA is really doing is creating a backdoor registry to guns. The ATF keeps your name, your address, your fingerprints. Anti-gun groups want to preserve this, obviously, because law enforcement... No, it's not law enforcement, but we'll go with that, okay? Even with no tax being collected, they still refuse to give up control over law-abiding citizens. And that's just ridiculous. And worse, because felons can't possess a silencer, and you can't legally sell a silencer or transfer it without being in possession of it and going through the process, that gives police an easy hook for a warrant. Easy justification to come into your house and raid you, destroying your house for non-violent minor felonies such as, I don't know, pirating videotapes. You pirate a videotape and then they look at your name and like, oh, he's got a silencer on his record. Now they greenlight someone to come into the house. Because you can't have that silencer. The second you get indicted, you can no longer be in possession of it, and you're not allowed to sell it or transfer it without being in possession with it. Yeah, not public safety here. They're finding a solution. They have a solution and they're trying to find a problem for it. One of the most unusual things about silencers are, we're one of the few places that actually regulate them to this level. Most European countries actually require you use them for hearing protection, to cut noise. America treats them as some sort of death machine. It's completely weird. In Europe, they have ridiculous gun regulations on everything except for silencers. And then here we are, what? What's going on here? A law-abiding citizen just shouldn't have to wait 6 to 12 months for the government to give them permission to use a safety device. The frustration with silencers is just insanely high because it makes no sense, and for whatever reason, the government just does not want to let go of this fight. So where are we at right now? The fight is in the court system. Because they took away the tax, honestly, they gave away the only constitutional justification they actually had to regulate things like this. Now, will that ultimately backfire and then the Supreme Court will be like, oh, because we're going to regulate it because of potato? That could happen. It very well could. But I think it's unlikely. The Supreme Court has been pretty firm that, hey, you can't use a tax as a regulation. A tax must be legitimate. It must be collected. And the problem is, in 1986, they stopped collecting taxes for machine guns. And yeah, the $200 tax is still there, so I can kind of see the justification for it, where silencers don't have the tax at all. But, they squeaked that one through. Plus, then there's still the SOT tax. That's a special occupational tax for dealers. They're still going to have to get that, so they could still be like, oh, because of the SOT tax, well, it's still being taxed, so it's still a legitimate tax. We'll have to see how this all plays out. Anyway, if you'd like to help support the channel, but you don't want to buy merchandise or donate to the Cash App or Give Send Go or anything like that, like spending extra money, that's totally okay. I have a way you can support the channel without even costing you a single extra penny. What you do is you go down in the description down below, and you click on the Amazon affiliate link. Just by clicking on that link and doing the Amazon shopping you were already going to do anyways, you don't have to buy anything from that link. You just have to click on it, then do the Amazon shopping you were going to do. I get a little kickback for it because you came there off my channel. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe.